Peace and shalom, Israel. Before we start the lesson, hit the notification button because we upload lessons every week and I don't want you to miss a single one of them. Like, comment, subscribe, and if there's a topic you would like for us to cover, we'll see what we can do. So until next time, cue the music. All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And peace to everyone joining us on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program. And as always, it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's Holy Sabbath day. Now, today's topic is entitled, The Spirit of Antichrist, Antichrist, Anti-God. I want to offer a little bit of clarification on what it means to have the spirit of Antichrist, what it is to be anti-God, and what it is to be anti-Christ, which anti simply means against. So I want to explore this subject and take you guys all the way back and show you where being against God or being against Christ began. Okay, now with that, we're going to start over in Genesis chapter 10, because there's a number of people who were against God throughout the past. You know that there's probably some stories or some instances that you can think of in your mind right now of people who were anti-God. Okay, you can also think of people right now who are anti-Christ. So we're going to look at that. So it's about the physical embodiment of someone who is anti-God, okay, or anti-Christ. There's some prototypes of people in history who were anti-God. There's also people who are anti-Christ. Okay, so we want to look at that. And to end it all, we want to look at this spirit of Antichrist, spirit of those that dwell on the earth right now that are against the Messiah. So we want to look at it from both sides, anti-God, anti-Christ. Okay, and right there in the middle, anti-Christ spirit. So with that, let's begin in Genesis chapter 10, Genesis chapter 10, nice and loud, pick it up at verse 8.
And Cush begot Nimrod.
Mm-hmm.
He began to be a mighty one in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
He was a mighty hunter before the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And the beginning of his kingdom was
Babel. Mm-hmm.
And Erech,
Mm-hmm.
and Akkad,
Mm-hmm.
and Calneh,
Calneh,
in the land of
Shinar. Read it again.
Wait, verse 11 or just read it?
10, go ahead.
And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel,
Mm-hmm. It was Babel.
Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that land went forth Ashur,
Mm-hmm.
and builded Nineveh,
Mm-hmm.
and the city
Rehoboth
and
Calah. Mm-hmm. 12.
And resent between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city.
Okay, so look at what we read here, just so you guys know. The first person that was anti or against God, okay, that we can look in the Bible, was Nimrod. Okay, so we can take a look at that. And as he read, it says, and Cush begat Nimrod. We're going to look at Cush. And Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty man in the earth. And he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore, it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. So he became very, very legendary. He was a conqueror, okay? And he comes from the line and the seed of Ham. So the first person who was anti-God, okay, was a dark-skinned individual by the name of Nimrod. So we want to look at this just for 1 second, how the Bible depicts, Cushites, okay? Now it depicts them as being black and being tall, okay? So let's look at that. So in the Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary, it says Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negro, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Okay. Now, when we say Cush, when we talk about that, we're talking about Ethiopians. Okay. So let's go on over to Jeremiah chapter 13. Okay. So as we just read, go to Jeremiah chapter 13. But as I just read, Ham, being one of the sons of Noah, okay, he was born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood, and he became the progenitor, the father, okay, of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, Canaanites, okay? So, Jeremiah 13, I want you to pick it up at verse 23. Jeremiah 13 and verse 23. When you get there, go ahead and read.
Can the Ethiopian change his skin,
Mm-hmm.
the leopard his spots?
Mm-hmm.
Then may ye also do good, that are accustomed to do evil.
Okay, now notice he said, can the Ethiopian change his skin? So we already know, Ethiopian, Cush, same thing. That's what the Ethiopians come from, Cush. We know Cush comes from Ham, who is the father of the dark races, okay? Egyptians are dark-skinned people, so on and so forth. Despite what you see today, okay? Historically, they're dark-skinned people. Go to Isaiah chapter 45. Okay, so we're talking about their skin, their height. So we want to get a mental picture of what these people look like. Okay, and we don't always have to get a mental picture. Obviously, this is something you can look up for yourself when you look in museum and look at displays and look at history, look at archaeology, look at the things that you can see with your own eyes, and you will understand these people. So Isaiah 45, and pick it up at verse 14. Isaiah 45 and 14.
Thus saith the Lord, the labor of Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and merchandise of Ethiopia, and of the
Sabians.
Men of stature.
Men of stature, okay? These men of great height, tall men, okay? Men of stature, just like the Philistines. Go ahead.
Shall come over unto thee,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall be thine.
Mm-hmm.
They shall come after thee,
Mm-hmm.
in chains they shall come over,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall fall and they shall fall down unto thee.
Mm-hmm.
They shall make supplication unto thee, saying, surely God is in thee,
Mm-hmm.
and there is none else. There is no God.
Mm-hmm. There is no one else. Now, let's go on over to Numbers chapter 13. Okay, Numbers chapter 13. We want to look at that as well. Okay, Numbers chapter 13. I want to give you an idea of what these people look like. Okay, very tall people. So Nimrod was a great, mighty hunter. Okay, and this is the line he came from, out of the line of Ham. Numbers 13, pick it up at verse 28.
Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land,
Mm-hmm.
and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there.
Okay, go to verse 33.
And there we saw the giants, the
Mm-hmm.
sons of Anak,
Mm-hmm.
which come of the giants.
Okay, so they saw giants, the son of Anak, okay, which come of the giants. That's where they come from, okay? That's where you get giant people from, okay? And we were what?
And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers,
Mm-hmm.
and so we were in their sight.
Okay, so he was saying that we look like grasshoppers to them, okay? That's how they viewed themselves, and that's how the sons of Anak viewed them as well, okay? You're talking about a lot of people that were huge, okay? 7, 8, 9, 10 feet tall, okay? Dark-skinned people, all right? So we have that idea. Now let's go to 2 Samuel. Let's go to 2 Samuel. I want you guys to get a picture, okay? Before we move forward, I just want to paint a picture in your head. 2 Samuel chapter 21, and pick it up at verse 15. 2 Samuel chapter 21 and verse 15. When you get there, let the Bible speak.
Moreover, the Philistines had yet a war again with Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And David went down, and his servants with him,
Mm-hmm.
and fought against the Philistines. And David waxed faint.
Continue.
And
Ishbenadab
Ishbenadab
Bibinad
Bibinab which was of the sons of the giant,
Mm-hmm.
the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight.
Mm-hmm.
He being girded with a new sword,
Mm-hmm.
thought to have slain David.
Okay, so if you get an idea, he said, okay, Ishbibbenot, which was the sons of the giant, okay, the weight of those spears weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, okay, you're saying the sheer size of this, okay, he being girded with a new, so he had a new sword, you know, on his person, and he thought to have slain David. Continue at verse 17, Abishai.
And Abishai, the son of
Zeruiah,
succored
him, mm-hmm.
had smote the Philistine and killed him.
Mm-hmm.
Then the man of David sware unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel.
Okay, so they just wanted to basically protect David at that time. They're like, look, you know, it's too dangerous for you to be out here fighting and everything. You are our light, our leader, our guide, that kind of thing. Okay, and verse 18.
And it came to pass after this, that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Sibbecai, the Hushathite,
the Hushathite slew
Saph,
which was of the son of the giant.
Again, giants. Okay, so just give you an idea of who's fighting and who are these people that we're talking about. Okay, so we're talking about Israelites versus Hamites, basically. Okay, Israelites versus Hamites. So they look very, very similar, but distinctively different line. Okay, which was the sons of the giants. Verse 19. Continue.
And there was again a battle in God with the Philistines.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Elhanan,
the son of
Jeroham,
and
Bethlehemite,
slew the brother of Goliath and the Gittite.
Mm-hmm.
The staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam.
Yeah, it's a big spear. Go ahead.
And there was yet a battle in Gath,
Mm-hmm.
where was a man of great stature.
Again, a man of great stature. Go ahead.
That had on every hand 6 fingers,
Mm-hmm.
and on every foot 6 toes,
Mm-hmm.
24 in number. And he also was born to the giant.
He was a huge man. Okay, go ahead.
And when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of
Shimea,
and the brother of David slew him.
Mm-hmm.
These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David, and by the hand of his servants.
Okay, fell by the hand of David, the hand of his servants. Okay, now we are talking about Nimrod. Okay, first I wanted to just paint this picture. Going over to Genesis chapter 11. First we were just talking about Nimrod. Okay, I want you to get an idea. But now let's look at something that Nimrod did that was against God. Okay, because he wanted to exalt himself. He wanted to make himself more than what he was. He wanted to ascend to a higher estate. Okay, against God. Okay, so let's go on over to Genesis chapter 11. Pick it up at verse 1. Genesis chapter 11 and verse 1. And when you get there, let the Bible speak.
And the whole earth was of one language,
Mm-hmm.
and of one speech.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar.
Mm-hmm.
And they dwelt there.
Mm-hmm.
And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick,
Mm-hmm.
and burn them thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
And they had brick for stone,
Mm-hmm.
and slime had they for mortar.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name,
Mm-hmm.
lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth.
Okay, let's make ourselves, more than what we are. Okay, let's ascend. These delusions of grandeur occurred in these people, specifically Nimrod. Okay, that's what it is. It's just they want to be bigger than what they truly are. Okay, he says, so lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. In verse 5.
And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one.
Okay.
And they have all one language.
They're operating in one accord, and they all have one language. What else?
And this they begin to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now nothing will be restrained from them,
Mm-hmm.
which they have imagined to do.
Right, they get a little too big for their britches. They know a little too much. They think a little too highly of themselves. We need to put a stop to this. Okay, go ahead.
Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city.
What else?
Therefore is the name of it called
Babel.
Babel.
That's where we get the Tower of Babel, because they were building a tower, and then he confused their language. That's what it means for Babel, okay? Because the Lord what?
Because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Yes.
Okay, so let's look at this real quick. Now, the Smith's Bible Dictionary defines Nimrod as rebellion, or valiant, a son of Cush, the grandson of Ham. His name means rebellion or valiant because he was a great hunter. So it does mean that he's a great hunter too. But it also can mean rebellion. Okay, the Hitchcock Bible Dictionary simply defines Nimrod as rebellion. I know a lot of definitions and a lot of modern interpretation, they treat it as a name of ridicule, like someone who's, an idiot, an imbecile, why you being such a Nimrod, that kind of thing, nincompoop, things like that. So Nimrod today, in today's language, could mean someone who is not very bright, okay? But we're talking about back then, we're talking about Bible definitions, okay? So the Bible definition is warrior, hunter, valiant, and rebellion. Okay, so it says Nimrod names mean rebel and is evidently meant to designate the nature and character of the man. Okay, and obviously we know rebellion means disobedient. Okay, and taking up arms against a ruler or authority. We know that God is a ruler and an authority, and he's going against that. Okay, so let's look at another guy who rebelled against God as we go to Daniel chapter 3. Okay, so we know that, rebellion is about disobeying the authority of God. So when it comes to people getting a little bit of power, a little bit of rulership, power corrupts. Absolutely. So we find this time and time again, So we're going to look at Daniel chapter 3 and beginning at verse 1. Daniel chapter 3 and verse 1. Let's look at Nebuchadnezzar, someone else who thought a little too high of himself. Nebuchadnezzar
the king made an image of gold, whose weight was 80 cubits, and the
breadth thereof,
6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of
Dura.
In the province of Babylon.
So he's next in line in the province of Babylon. Okay, go ahead.
Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery,
dulcimer,
and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up.
Okay, so this is what he was saying. He was calling everybody, anybody with authority. He's just going to make a decree and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to go down. So he said in verse 3, he said, then the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all of the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded. So he's talking to everyone. O people, nations, and languages, everybody. Let me tell you guys what's about to happen, what's about to transpire, and what is expected of you, that at what time of year you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, this is what you're going to do. Ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. So he's telling them exactly what you're going to do. And then he gives you the consequence if you don't in verse 6. Go ahead.
And whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace.
Okay, so he said, if you don't fall down, if you don't obey, this is what you're going to do. So Nebuchadnezzar, again, making more of himself, okay? Making himself a god. So right there tells you you're against God right there. If you're going to be God, you're going against the true God. So go ahead.
Therefore, at that time when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down, and let a beast's heart be given unto him.
Hold on, you skipped. Yeah, skip the page.
Yeah.
That the nation, so he said in verse 7, therefore at that time when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Verse 8.
Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans, Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews.
What else?
They spoke and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee.
They're disrespecting you. Go ahead.
They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Okay,
so again, against God. Let's just worship these other gods and set up this golden image as a god. Okay, so he said, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up, which you have set up. Next verse, 13.
And then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to bring
Shadrach,
Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my God, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? So he asked them a question straight up. He said, okay, is this true? Just look him right in the eye. Hey, is this true? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do you not serve my God, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Okay, so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are basically going to tell him, look, we have a God. We don't serve any other God. Okay, next verse, 15. Now if ye be ready that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast at the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Total disrespect.
Who's going to save you from me? Who's the God that's going to save you from me, is what he's saying. So in verse 16, Shadrach,
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter.
We're going to tell you straight up. Go ahead.
If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king.
So if the Lord wants to, the God that we serve, if he wants to save us from being thrown in the fire, if he wants to, he can. You know, but if he doesn't, we're still not going to do it. But let's continue to read. He said, but if not,
be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
He just said, no, we're not going to do it. It don't matter. If he saves us, hey, that's who we serve. If he doesn't save us, then regardless, we're still not going to serve your God. We're just not going to do it. Sorry, king. We can't do it. Can't do it for you. How did the king respond in verse 19?
Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his
visage, the way he looked,
was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace one 7 times more than it was wont
to be heated. Yeah, 7 times hotter than it was before. That's all he's saying. 7 times hotter than it was before. Okay, go ahead. 20.
And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace.
Mm-hmm.
Then these men would bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
So they got burned. It was just that hot. Go ahead. When they threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in there, they got burned. Go ahead.
And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace.
Say on.
Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished.
Astonished.
And rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king.
Yep.
He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spake, and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth, and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was an hair of their head singed. Neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them.
Doesn't even seem, they don't look like or smell like they were ever in the furnace. Continue.
Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any God except their own.
Except their own God. What else?
Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dungeon. Because there is no other God that can deliver out after this sort.
There's no God like this God. There's just no way. Go ahead.
Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
And then he promoted them in the province of Babylon. We're going to go to Daniel chapter 4. Go to Daniel chapter 4. So we understand that he tried to make himself something else. Make himself a god of gods. He had his idol set up. Speaking of Nebuchadnezzar, had his idol set up. Wanted everybody to worship those idols. When you guys hear this music, you come down, fall down, and worship. I set up this golden image. You come and you fall down and you worship. Obviously, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, no, we're not going to do it. Okay? Which has upset him. Now he knows that there's a true and living God. But was at the end of it. Okay? He did say, hey, you know what? We're done to decree all you guys, hey, serve the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But how soon do we forget? Daniel chapter 4. Daniel chapter 4. And if you don't mind, brother, start at verse 18. Verse 18. So we're starting right after the fact. See, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Okay, he had a dream, and we're not talking about Martin Luther King either. So he had a dream, and he didn't understand what the dream meant. Had all kinds of images in it, and I saw this and I saw that. What does it mean? He called all these same people, all these magicians and all these rulers and all these holy men, quote unquote holy men, and say, hey, could you tell me the interpretation thereof? Could you tell me what this dream means? That's basically what he did. Obviously, he had to eventually go to Daniel. Okay, so Daniel can tell him the interpretation thereof. So start in verse 18 and let's look at the interpretation thereof.
This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O
Belteshazzar, which is Daniel. Go ahead.
O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof. For as much as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able. for the spirit of the holy gods is in thee.
Okay, so he said, so the spirit of the holy gods is in thee. Okay, so he's saying, you know, this dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O Belteshazzar, which of course this is, you know, Daniel, but you know, your ruler, your oppressor really knows how to change your name. Kunta Kinte, Toby. They know how to change your name. So that's just one of the things that they do. Then verse 19, he said, Then Daniel,
whose name was
Belteshazzar,
was astonished for 1 hour,
Mm-hmm.
and his thoughts troubled him.
He was thinking about it. Go ahead.
The king spake and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee.
Okay, so he's basically calming him down and say, you know, because obviously Daniel or Belteshazzar didn't want to tell him the bad news, basically. And it worried him. He meditated on it for an hour and just like, oh, man, this is not good. Okay, this is not good. But the king just said, don't worry about it. Just break it to me. Just tell me what's up. Okay, just go ahead. Because usually you bring bad news to a king if they're not a righteous king. You bring bad news to a king, they'll kill you. Yeah, they'll kill you. They get mad. They get mad. Half the time they kill you. So you're absolutely right. So that's why it makes people nervous to have to tell a king or a ruler bad news. If they are not a good, righteous king, you could be in trouble. Okay? So he said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. Belteshazzar what? Answered?
Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream be to them that hate thee,
Mm-hmm.
and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies.
Okay, because it's gonna be a warning to everybody else. Okay, go ahead.
The tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and the sight thereof to all the earth,
Mm-hmm.
whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much,
Mm-hmm.
and in it was meat for all.
Say on.
Under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation.
Mm-hmm.
It is thou, O king.
It's you. Okay, that's what he's saying. It is thou, O king. He's saying it's you, O king, that art what?
That art grown and become strong.
Mm-hmm.
For thy greatness is grown and reacheth unto heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and thy dominion to the end of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas the king saw a watcher and an holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, Hew the tree down and destroy it,
Mm-hmm.
yet leave the stump of the roots
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
the earth,
Mm-hmm.
even with a band of iron and brass,
Mm-hmm.
and the tender grass of the field,
Come on.
and let it be wet with the dew of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and let his portion be with the beasts of the field,
Mm-hmm.
till 7 times pass over him.
Mm-hmm.
This is the interpretation, O king,
Mhm.
that this is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king.
Okay, he said this is what's about to happen to you. Okay, you are about to you're about to lose everything. Is what he's saying. You're gonna lose everything. I'm just letting you know. Okay, that's basically what he's saying in short. Verse 25.
That they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall make thee to eat grass and oxen,
Mm-hmm.
as oxen,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and 7 times shall pass over thee,
Mm-hmm.
till thou know that the Most High ruleth the kingdom of men,
Mm-hmm.
and giveth it to whomsoever he will.
Yes, the Lord said, look, you're only in power because of me. You're in power because of me, because I say so, because I allow it. You rule the whole earth. You rule this kingdom, all the nations and languages and all that. You rule all this because I say so. So much for you being a God. When you're trying to usurp God, that's a big problem. God has a problem with that. Okay, you are anti-God. You are against God. Okay, we get a little too high-minded. We think, oh, I'm the king, I'm the ruler, I'm the emperor. You know, I control everything. Everything I want, I can get it at the snap of my hand. And God's like, oh, really? Okay. That's what we're doing? Okay, well, let me show you. All right. So he said in verse 28, because he told him verse 20, where we got? 26? Go ahead, 26.
And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots,
Mm-hmm.
thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee.
Mm-hmm.
After that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule.
Mm-hmm. What else?
Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee,
Mm-hmm.
and break off thy sins by righteousness,
Mm-hmm.
and thine iniquities be showing mercy to the poor.
Mm-hmm.
If it may be a
Lengthening
of thy tranquility.
By that tranquility. So he's just saying, hey, wherefore, O king, let my counsel be accepted. I hope you listen to me. He said, look, just take my advice, please. Don't just reject it. You know, when you try to tell someone good advice and they don't want to listen. So he said, don't reject what I'm trying to tell you here. I hope it's acceptable to you. Okay? And he said, and break off thy sins by righteousness. He said, look, you're messing up big time. How about you start practicing righteousness? Okay? That's what he's saying. How about we start doing right? And thy iniquities, okay, so he says, so break off thy sins by righteousness and your iniquities by showing mercy unto the poor. Quit being so hard on people because you are transgressing. Okay, so Daniel is trying to give him wise counsel and say, look, man, you can turn this thing around. You might be able to turn this thing around if you start walking the right path, if you start doing right by God. Maybe it'll get turned around, okay? And he said, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. Okay, we know tranquil is calm and smooth and meditative. Okay, everything will be fine. You don't have to even worry about it if you just act right. Okay, if you just do what the Lord wants you to do. Verse 29. Okay. Oh, well, the 28 is good. Go ahead. 28.
All this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
The king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom
Mm-hmm.
by the might of my power
Mm-hmm.
and for the honor of my majesty?
Okay. Listen to what he said. That didn't sound a little arrogant to you? That didn't sound just a little bit arrogant? He said, the king spake and said, is it not this great Babylon? Look at all this. Look at this kingdom. Look around. Look at all this stuff. He said that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power. I did all this. I conquered. I did everything. Look at what I did. Look around. This is me. That's me. I did this. This is what he said. And for the honor of my majesty, I did this for me. So y'all can respect me. Anti-God. Yeah, he's against God. Selfish, big-minded, high-minded, okay? Pompous, proud, arrogant, full of himself. Okay? Read verse 31.
While the word was in the king's mouth,
Mm-hmm.
there fell a voice from heaven,
Mm-hmm.
saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee.
Oh, there it is. Voice out of heaven said, oh, yeah, guess what? Now, you're going to lose everything. Just like the dream said, you're going to be like an ox, and you're going to eat grass and have the dew on you and everything. I want you to imagine, a homeless person, right? Homeless person and a wild man, wild beard, matted up hair and everything, grass and stuff stuck all in it and everything. He's out there eating grass like other grass eating animals out there, like bovine, deer, cow, stuff like that. Imagine. That's what happens. Now, this is a king, a ruler on top, controlled most of the world. His dominion was vast. Got a little too big for his britches, and then a voice out of heaven, it said, while he was saying it, while he was speaking it, right when he put the period on the end of that sentence that he was saying, I did all this, right after that, while the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, out of your own mouth, is what he's saying, the kingdom is departed from thee. You did it. You messed up. This is what the voice is saying. You messed up. Now, we're going to go ahead and transition. Go to Daniel chapter 11. We're going to transition a little bit and get into other people who thought they were bigger than God, who were against God. And we'll transition from being against God and against Christ. You have to hang in there, okay, for the rest of the lesson, okay? Let's go to Daniel 11. What we're going through, what we're looking at is Nimrod being a prototype of Antichrist or against God or against Christ, against God. And we looked at Nebuchadnezzar, who is a prototype of the Antichrist. Okay, and we're going to continue to look at, in a minute, we're going to look at Antiochus Epiphanes, who's a prototype of Antichrist. Okay, we got to deal with it from the spiritual side. We got to deal with it from the physical side. Because the Bible, it will show us something. It'll show us something in miniature. And then it'll show us on a grand scale. It'll give us a small example. Then it'll give us a big example. Okay? Now, the worldwide flood, that was a huge example. Sodom and Gomorrah, small example. Small example of what? the same way it happened to Sodom and Gomorrah, a whole lot of hellfire and brimstone is going to come flying down out of the air in the end of days. Because he's going to come with flames of fury. Okay, so we can read that. So we look at things from a small example. We can look at small, practical, and actual physical example. And then we'll see the spiritual manifestation of it. So go to Daniel chapter 11. Okay, let's look at Daniel chapter 11. And when you get there, pick it up at verse 21. Daniel chapter 11 and verse 21. When you get there, let the Bible speak.
And in his estate shall stand up in a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom.
No regard for the kingdom. Go ahead.
But he shall come in peaceably, and obtain the kingdom of flatteries.
And he's going to obtain the kingdom by flattery. So he's going to be nice. He's going to be, he's going to come in smooth at first, saying nice things at first, and it's going to change quickly. Go ahead.
And with the arms of the flood shall they be overflown.
Of a flood, that's army, okay? With the arms of a flood shall they be overthrown from before him. Go ahead.
And shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant.
Go ahead.
And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully. For he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people.
Okay, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at this guy, okay? This guy's talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. But we're gonna look at this guy, okay? So I want you to remember also the Prince of the Covenant. Look at some of these terms, and we're gonna come back to that, okay? Verse 24, if you will.
He shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his father's father. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil and riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strong beholds, even for his time.
Say on.
And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the kingdom of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, that they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down and slain.
Go ahead, brother.
And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table.
So you're talking about these kings. So you're gonna have king versus king warring against each other. Okay, somebody has to win. Go ahead.
But it shall not prosper. For yet the end shall be at the same appointed. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant.
Of course it will.
And he shall do exploits, and return to his own land.
Okay, what we have to understand, see, is that there was time, 400 years between Malachi and Matthew. Things were still going on. And we're talking about like the Greek Empire in that time. So we're going to look at specifically, Antiochus Epiphanes. He's very important. Let me read a little bit of information because I took the liberty to go look at multiple resources, one of them being the Encyclopedia Britannica, okay? Britannica. So let's look at Antiochus Epiphanes. Is important in the world history and the Bible because he is a picture of one coming to the nation of Israel, a prototype of the Antichrist. He is a prototype of the Antichrist. Now, is he the Antichrist? No. But he's like the Antichrist? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? Now, when you guys read this, when we read further in the Bible, you'll understand. Now, we just read, Daniel's chapter 11. We're going to look at a couple things to see if this guy matches up of what the Bible was talking about. Okay? Because a lot of people say, well, that was Antiochus Epiphanes. He's Antichrist. It's over. It's done. As we get further in this lesson, we'll see, no, the language kind of changes a little bit and talk about someone to come. Now, this particular Antichrist, he's come. Now, let's look at Antiochus Epiphanes came to the scene as a man of peace. He says he'll come peaceably, right? As a man of peace in about 175 BC. He was a great public orator and with great flatteries. What he's going to do with flattery? Interesting. He made the people acknowledge that he was the right king, not only in Syria, but also in Israel. So we were looking at Daniel 11 where he says, And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. We just read that. And Antiochus Epiphanes did the same thing. That's exactly what he did. And with the arms of the flood, they shall be overthrown, okay, from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the princes of the covenant. Okay, that's what we read in Daniel 11. Okay, now in the Old Testament, the prince of the covenant refers to the high priest in Jerusalem, while in the New Testament, the prince of the covenant is Christ. Okay, that's what we understand. It's of Christ. All right, so we have an idea. Now, Onias was the legitimate high priest, a Jewish Israelite priest, and Antiochus Epiphanes brutally threw him out and exalted an apostate, a false priest, a man called Menelaus. Okay, the Jews started being suspicious. Obviously, because these are Greek people and they want to set up and start doing what they want to do. No, this is how you're going to worship. This is your new high priest. I appoint this guy is going to be that's false prophet. Okay, false priest. All right, so let's look at that. He took over the fat lands of Israel, Edom, Moab, all Palestine up to Syria as prophesied in Daniel 11 and 24. Read verse 24 for me. Verse 24.
Of 11 still.
Of 11.
He shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his father's father. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil in riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. Even for a time.
Now he came down to invade Egypt with a great army, and the old rivalry between Egypt and Syria was renewed, as it was said when you read verse 25. Read verse 25 for me.
And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up into battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him.
Okay, let's see what else. Because Antiochus Epiphanes tricked some leaders out of the south to turn against their king, and Ptolemy was betrayed as prophesied. What does it say in verse 26?
Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain.
And many shall fall down slain. So we're looking at treachery right here in the Bible. We look at history, we match it up with the Bible to see what's going on. This is what Daniel, one of the things Daniel was prophesying, okay? All right, now Antiochus then came down to Egypt to sign a peace treaty. The two leaders, Antiochus and Ptolemy, lied in the signing of the treaty as prophesied. Read verse 27.
And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief.
What?
And they shall speak lies at one table. But it shall not prosper. For yet the end shall be at the time appointed.
Look at that. So Antiochus and Ptolemy, they wanted to go ahead and make a treaty, make an agreement of peace. And neither one of them intended on keeping it. So it didn't work. Neither one of them. You and I sit down. We say, okay, now we're not going to fight each other. Everything's going to be cool. You are planning on killing me, and I'm planning on killing you. So that ain't going to work, right? That agreement is just simply not going to work. But that's what we're looking at. That's in 27. Look at this. Antiochus secretly devised the destruction of the old covenant, intending to replace it with pagan, Hellenistic, hedonistic culture and religion as prophesied. What does it say in verse 28, please?
Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant.
Then his heart shall be against the holy covenant. He never intended on keeping any of that. Look at this. He said, feeling that he has the situation well with the Egyptians after signing the treaty, he decided to conquer Egypt once again. But the ships of Chittim, which is Cyprus, came down against him as prophesied. In verse 30. What does it say in verse 30?
For the ships of Chittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation. You see what's happening here? Now the ships of Chittim was, the Roman Empire, situated in Cyprus. Okay, he already planted mischief right there. Okay, the Roman soldiers, if we look further, the Roman soldiers stopped Antiochus from attacking Egypt. And in his anger and frustration, he turned back to Jerusalem to avenge his anger on the Jews as prophesied. He said, what? Therefore, he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant, right? That's what he says, right? So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence
with them that forsake the holy covenant. That's what we're talking about. It seems to line up with everything Daniel is saying, right? Everything Daniel said, and Antiochus did it. He fits the bill, left and right. Obviously, some people are going to want to come against it because some people just want to argue. I'm just reading from history, reading from resources anybody can look up. Okay? Now, arriving in Jerusalem, that night many Jews were slaughtered. We're still talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, okay? He went into the temple, took away the daily sacrifice, set up an image, and demanded every person to worship it. Doesn't that sound a little antichrist to you, anti-God to you? Okay. He slaughtered a pig inside the temple, and the priests were forced to drink the pig blood. What does that sound like? Does that sound like anti-God to you? Antichrist right there? He slaughtered a pig inside the temple, and the priests were forced to drink the pig blood. Sounds like an abomination that causes desolation, right? That's what it is. Abominable. Abominable. And you got people up there just licking their lips, about to put something abominable in their body, but that's not what this lesson is about. I'm just showing this is the abomination that makes the temple desolate. That's it. That's when you get, we'll get to that. Okay? In verse 31, he said, now this is the abomination that makes desolate. Read verse 31 for me, please.
An arm shall stand at his part,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength,
Mm-hmm.
and shall take away the daily sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate.
Wait a minute. So that doesn't sound like what Antiochus did. That doesn't sound like that. He said, he went to the temple, took away the daily sacrifice, set up an image, and demanded everybody to worship it. And then he slaughtered a pig inside the temple and forced the priest to drink. If that doesn't sound abominable, I don't know what is. That's what we're talking about. Okay? Antiochus sent Apollonius with 22,000 soldiers to pollute Jerusalem and the temple. Thus it is said, arms shall stand on his part. Okay? That's what it means. Arms shall stand. He's going to raise up an army. Okay? Arms shall stand on his part, ready to go. And send out an order. Go do this. Go kill them. Go ransack. Go whatever. That's what it means. Okay? Verse 32, please.
And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flattery.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits.
They're going to do exploits. You want to see what those exploits is? You want to know what those exploits are? Well, I'm going to give you the exploits. I'm glad you asked. Let me give you these exploits. The Jews became devastated by this massacre and abomination. Of course they did. Okay? One Jewish priest, Maccabean, okay, refused to blaspheme God, and Antiochus Epiphanes killed him. But what happened? 5 sons of Maccabean, led by Judas Maccabean, began to merge a guerrilla war on the Antiochus and his armies. Reason, which is the reason why it is said, but the people that do know their God shall be strong, and they're gonna do great exploits. That's why. So let me just go ahead and look at this real quick. Miraculous other Jews started joining the Maccabean family, and the Maccabean revolt took place. Antiochus Epiphanes and his army were drawn out of Jerusalem. That's the good news. But since I mentioned Judas Maccabees, okay, obviously you can get some of this information out of the apocryphal books. You can get it out of history, and you can get it out of the apocryphal books, okay? So I'm not against you learning all you can learn, okay? So Judas Maccabees, let's look at this. This part is in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it says Judas Maccabees, also called Judah Maccabee. Maccabeus is also called Judah Maccabee. Maccabeus, also spelled Maccabeus. Okay, he died in about 161 and 160 BC, something like that. Okay, Jewish guerrilla leader who defended his country from invasion by the Seleucid king Antiochus Epiphanes, preventing the imposition of Hellenism upon Judea and preserving the Jewish religion. The son of Matthias, an aged priest who took to the mountains in rebellion when Antiochus attempted to impose the Greek religion on the Jews. Judas took over the rebel leadership on his father's death and proved to be a military genius, overthrowing 4 Seleucid armies in quick succession and restoring the Temple of Jerusalem. That's apropos at this time of year. Why? Because this deed is celebrated in the Jewish festival of life, or Hanukkah, okay, which simply means dedication. Chanukah means dedication, okay? So that's where it comes back, when he took back the temple and rededicated it, okay? This deed is celebrated in the Jewish festival of lights, or Hanukkah. On Antiochus' death in 164 BCE, the Seleucids offered the Jews freedom of worship, but Judas continued the war, hoping to free his nation politically as well as religiously. Although he himself was killed 2 years later, his younger brothers took over the fight, finally securing the independence of Judea. We have to go through the history. We have to go back. We have to look at it, because we won't know what happened between Malachi and Matthew. Right? That's a lot of information, right? 300-400 years worth of information, and a pivotal event that happened in history. Because a lot of times when we open up the book and we get to Matthew, all of a sudden we get Roman occupation. But if we look at Daniel and we show that, hey, you know what? It says it's going to be, the Babylonians and the Medo-Persian and then the Greeks and then the Romans, and we skip a big old chunk. So at the very least, go back through the history and see what happened during the Greek Empire. You get Alexander the Great, you're going to get Antiochus, you're going to get all these people in there. Find out what happened as it relates to Jerusalem. Go back, look at your history, find your resources, whatever that is. Find your resources, credible resources, and go take a look at what happened so we can understand what happened. There's an Antichrist out there. There's nothing new going to be under the sun. We're going to have prototypes. Let's look at those prototypes, look at those characteristics. Let's look at what the scripture says, so when it happens in the future, you can recognize it. That's the point. When it happens in the future, you can recognize it. Let us continue, okay? Now, let's go to the New Testament. Let's go to the New Testament. And when you get to chapter 2, pick it up at verse 18. Now we're moving towards the spirit of Antichrist, okay? The language changes a little bit, okay? Go ahead. 1 John chapter 2, read in verse 18, please.
Little children, it is the last time, and as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. Okay, now, remember, look at how they're talking, and we just read about Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, that was in the past. This is before that. He's talking about the present, in his present. Okay, we can see where they talk about Antichrist in their present while we're reading it, and they're talking about Antichrist to come. Okay, so like he said, little children, it is the last time, and ye have heard that Antichrist shall come. Even now are there many Antichrists, plural, whereby we know that it is the last time. Drop down to verse 22, please. Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ?
Yes.
He is Antichrist that denieth the Father and the Son.
Okay, he is Antichrist that denies the Father and the Son. So if you want to deny the Father and the Son, you're Antichrist. Period. Okay, that's one way that we can know. Go to Matthew 24 and 24. Matthew 24:24. We'll go back to 1 John momentarily. But for the moment, let's go to Matthew 24 and 24. I just want the one verse, Matthew 24:24. When you get there, say on.
For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Okay, absolutely. They are going to deceive the very elect, because it's going to seem like these people are holy. It's going to seem like they are pro-Christ rather than anti-Christ. It's going to seem like they're pro-God and instead of anti-God. But we'll know them by their fruit. You'll be able to tell. Okay? So let's go back to 1 John. Back to 1 John and pick it up at chapter 4. Pick it up at verse 1. 1 John chapter 4, verse 1. Go ahead. Beloved, believe not every spirit, But try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Hereby know ye the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesseth that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God.
Yes.
And every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not God.
What? Say on.
And this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world.
Look at, he used it at both tense. First of all, it's plural, okay? We're talking about plural. Not believe not every spirit, whether they be of God, because many false prophets are going out into the world. Hereby know ye the Spirit of God. This is how you're going to know. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that confesses not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, okay? The spirit of Antichrist. Many false prophets have gone out into the world. The spirit of Antichrist is coming. It's here and it's coming. They're saying it's already started. It's coming and it's already, and that's widespread. We got a lot of Antichrist right now, brothers and sisters, out in the world. And it didn't start today. Okay? It started centuries ago. And it's continuing now. That's what we're talking about here. Okay? Whereby we have heard that it should come, and even now already in the world, even in their day. So there's more to come. So go to 2 John chapter 7. 2 John chapter 7. Well, 2 John, sorry, no chapters. 2 John, verse 7. 2 John, verse 7.
For many deceivers are entered into the world.
Many, go ahead.
For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. That is the deceiver of an Antichrist.
He said, what? Read that again. This is of what?
This is a deceiver and an Antichrist.
Yeah, he's a deceiver and an Antichrist. Anti-Messiah. Against God. You desire the Son, you automatically don't get the Father. Period. You don't get the one that sent him. Okay? So either, it doesn't matter. So this is a deceiver and an Antichrist. But what did he say in verse 8?
Look to yourselves that we lose not those things which we have wrought. But that we receive a full reward.
Okay, so don't lose the things that we work for. You've been doing this. You haven't been doing it for nothing. Hold on to it so you can receive your reward, okay? But that we receive a full reward. We know what that reward is, okay? So just make sure you don't lose what you've done so far in verse 9.
Whosoever transgresseth and abideth not in the doctrine of Christ hath not God. He that abideth in the doctrine of Christ he hath both the Father and the Son.
Okay, he has both the Father and the Son. What else?
And if there come any unto you, and bring not this doctrine, receive him not into your house, neither bid him Godspeed.
If they don't want to hear it, don't even receive him in their house, and don't even say Godspeed, God be with you. Don't even worry about it. Because they're Antichrist. Because they're Antichrist. You don't have to have them in your house. You don't have to say, hey, God be with you. You don't have to do all that. Don't receive him in your house. Don't even bid them Godspeed. They're just anti. They're just against. I know people personally that are against. And I don't have them over for dinner. They're just straight up against. That's it. This is Antichrist. Okay? 2 Thessalonian. Let's go to 2 Thessalonian, please. Second Thessalonian. And pick it up in chapter 2. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And verse 3. Let the Bible speak.
Let no man deceive you by any means. For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
Yes.
Who opposeth that and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he is as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
So he's talking about future now. See, he didn't go back. He's not talking about or thinking about, Antiochus Epiphanes. He's just talking about future, okay? So that's why we're saying we got to understand Antichrist, anti-God, past, present, and future. We got to understand all of that, okay? Go ahead.
Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. And now ye know what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time.
Okay, when it is time. Go ahead.
For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then shall that wicked be revealed,
Mm-hmm.
whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and shall destroy with the brightness of his
Coming. Say on.
Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying
wonders,
and with all deceivableness of
unrighteousness.
In them that perish,
Mm-hmm.
because they received not the love of the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and they
that they might be saved. Yeah. So they don't want you try to give someone the truth or whatever, and they don't want to hear it. You try to give them the truth, they could be saved. Because see, living in a lie won't save you. Living in a lie just simply won't save you. So they're kicking against everything that you're trying to show them that the Bible is saying. They don't want to hear it. They're Antichrist. Because we have a spirit of Antichrist in the world right now. Period. They don't want to hear anything you have to say. They don't want to hear nothing that the Bible has to say. They want to accept what they've already accepted in their mind. What they already think. What they think, that's their God. Okay? That's their doctrine. There's no way you're going to tell them something different. People create a particular bubble of reality around themselves and do everything they can to protect that bubble. Period. They're not going to allow you to shift that paradigm, despite what the Bible actually says. He said in verse 10, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. In verse 11,
and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie.
And because there's some lies you cannot get people off of it. You cannot take their lie away from them. They're going to defend that reality. They're going to defend that false doctrine. They're going to defend it to the hilt. That's Antichrist too. If you don't care what Christ says, that's Antichrist. If you don't do what he does, what he says to do, that's Antichrist. That's that spirit. If you don't even want to question, you know what, maybe I was wrong about something. Maybe I ought to examine this. Maybe I ought to at least look at it. Maybe I need to look deeper into it. You don't even want to do that. Antichrist. It says test the spirit. Study that shows out that self-approved. It says all these things. Test everything. But no. It says prove all things. No, you don't want to do that. I know what I think, and that's what I'm going to do. That's Antichrist. Okay? So there's not just one Antichrist necessarily. There will be one coming. But you already had the prototypes then. You may have a couple of prototypes now, and then you're going to have the real deal Antichrist later, giving us an example. That's what we have to understand. Giving us an example. Did you read verse 12 for me? He said in verse 11, he said, for this cause God shall send them strong delusion. And we know that's out there in the world right now. That they should believe a lie. Verse 12.
That they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So those people running around telling you don't got to do this, you ain't got to do that, don't worry about it, my God, this and that, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. All the roses and bubbles and lollipops and rainbows and all that stuff. What does this say right here? They're Antichrist. That's the spirit. We're addressing the spirit of Antichrist right now. Okay? When I was pointing out Nimrod and Nebuchadnezzar and Antiochus Epiphanes, those are prototypes of a physical Antichrist. Those are just prototypes of the real deal. Now we're talking about the spirit of Antichrist. And this is giving you examples of the spirit, not what I say. Not because of what Brother Robert says. This is what we can read. Go to Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13. This will be pretty much last two places we're going to go. Revelation chapter 13. We're going to read a lot of it. Pick it up at verse 1. Revelation 13, verse 1, say on. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and a great authority.
Okay, all these things. They're just talking about like the secession of all these kingdoms that had previously risen and fallen. That's basically what we're talking about when he says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, feet like a bear, the mouth of that of a lion. Talking about all these different kingdoms that came and went. Okay, and I saw one of his heads. What in verse 3?
And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast.
Okay, so some people, they want to go back and say, oh, this is Nero and all that. No, let's keep going. Okay, this is just another prototype. Okay, go ahead.
And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?
Go ahead.
And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months.
Go ahead.
And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God.
Anti-God, Antichrist. Go ahead.
To blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations.
Go ahead.
And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword.
Yep.
Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
What's that?
And I behold another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
Go ahead.
And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed.
Say, Uncle, we're talking about Antichrist and a false prophet here. Go ahead.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
This is how he's going to get people to follow him, because he's going to do great things, miraculous things. We're going to see it. Even as fire come down out of heaven, just like in Elijah's day. So we're talking about, actually making it happen. Because if someone can actually do that, and you can see it and witness it for yourself, you might well bear with it. You might well believe him. You might be like, oh, wow, this person got power. This must be Son of God sent back to us again. Except in this Antichrist, he gets his power from the dragon. He gets his power from Satan. But he's going to have to do something. He's going to have to demonstrate a show of power so that he can get a lot of people to follow him. This is Antichrist. This is future. Go ahead.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
What else?
And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image of the beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed.
Sounds like back in the day of Nebuchadnezzar, if you don't worship this beast, if you don't worship this image, you shall be killed. So, same thing. Nothing new under the sun, brothers and sisters. The Most High allows us to see things in miniature. He gives us a little example. And then we'll see it on a big scale later, so we can recognize it. Okay? Continue. He said in verse 15, he said, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Verse 16.
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead.
Come on.
and that no man might buy or sell,
Mhm.
save he that had the mark,
Mhm.
or the name of the beast, or the number of his name.
Mhm.
Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast,
Mhm.
for it is the number of a man,
Mhm.
and his number is 666.
That's where we get 666. Okay, so that's where we get that. Now we're going to go to Revelation 17. Go to Revelation chapter 17. Okay, so we're just getting an idea of how this Antichrist will operate, how the system is going to be set up, where he's going to have all this control. Going to show a great power. He's going to show some signs, some miracles. Going to have great power. Okay, talking about Antichrist, he's going to have great power, and then after that, you're going to be in subjection. You receive a mark. This lesson isn't about what the mark is or anything like that, but you receive a mark, meaning you have to go. Now, whatever it is going to control your buying and selling, whatever it is. You don't worship him, you don't get to eat or make money. Okay, so we got to look at the clues, brothers and sisters. Okay, so 17, pick it up at verse 7. Revelation 17, pick it up at verse 7.
And the angel said unto me,
Mhm.
Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns.
What's that?
The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, it yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. Okay,
7 hills, 7 mountains. Okay, he's just saying where it's situated. I'm gonna tell you what this is. Okay, that's basically what he's explaining. Okay, so we do. Look, I'm not gonna make any bones about it. Okay, we're talking about the Roman Empire. Okay, and its resurrection of the Roman Empire. Okay, this is the top level of the Jews, of the Gentiles, I should say. Sorry, this is the top level of the Gentiles. This is the height of Gentile rule, is what we're talking about. It's going to be the Holy Roman Empire. It's going to be the marriage of church and state, basically. Not much different in the time of Constantine. Not much different from that. The marriage of church and state. It's the same thing. Nothing new under the sun. Same thing. We're going to continue to see this. Okay? And he said in verse 9, he said, and here's the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Okay, so go ahead. Verse 10.
There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Okay,
so we know if you look at the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and all those, that they were taken out too, just disappeared. We don't even hear of the Visigoths. We don't even hear about them anymore. But continue.
And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition.
What else?
And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast.
Go ahead.
These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords, and King of kings. And he that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Okay, so what happens now when we get past this whole Antichrist thing and anti-God thing, and he's revealed and he's destroyed, we're able to recognize it. We're going to go to one last place as to what happens at the end of it all if you stay the course. Go to Daniel chapter 7. Okay? If the guy comes in and he actually say, you know what, this whole Antichrist, anti-God thing, it's got to go. When he comes to set things in order, what's going to happen? What about the saints of the Most High? What's going to happen when this whole Antichrist thing is over? Go to Daniel chapter 7. Pick it up at verse 27, please. Verse 27. Daniel 7 and 27. Go ahead and read. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints and the Most High. Whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Okay, so that's all we need to know. That's all we need to know. The kingdom of the Most High is going to go to his people.
The king's going to come and conquer and take care of all this mess, all this antichrist, anti-God mess. So in summary, you have the spirit of Antichrist. That's both anti-God, and we looked in history where we can see people who are against God. Against God. And we see that you can have a spirit of Antichrist, which is rebellion, where you want to rebel against God. And then we know specifically there are people out there who are against Christ, who are against Messiah, who are anti-Messiah. And lastly, we know there's going to be a particular person who will be the physical embodiment, instead of a prototype, the physical embodiment of Antichrist, period. And we know where he's going to draw his power from. So, brothers and sisters, I hope you got something out of this lesson so we can understand what the Antichrist is. It's not just one person, one little thing. No. It is a whole slew of things. Okay? We had the prototypes of the past. We have prototypes of the present. We're going to have the real deal in the future. We have the spirit of anti-God, anti-Messiah, anti-Christ in the past, present, and we still will have it in the future. This is against everything God. That's what it means. If you want to be anti-Christ, anti-Messiah, it's anything against God and what he wants. That's anti-Christ. So until next time, search the scriptures, improve all things. Peace and shalom, Israel.